Hey everyone, it is October 22, 2013. I'm Rene Ritchie, and right now we're going to provide live coverage, commentary, color, and analysis of Apple's new iPad and Mac event. This is an iMore special. We also have Peter Cohen, who is going to provide, I believe, the best Mac coverage in the business.
Thank you very much, Rene.
And Apple's going to put on a show, and they are live streaming it. If you are on our events page, imore.com/events, you will see the live stream stickied in the open chat window. You can just go there. It's at apple.com as well. You need to be using Safari, whether on the Mac or on iOS to see it, or the Apple TV channel. I think there's an Apple TV channel, Peter.
There is indeed an Apple TV channel, an Apple Events channel on the Apple TV, and it is live streaming there as well. So one way or the other, you can certainly play along at home, live and in effect today.
Ooh. Now, one of the things we don't know is Google Hangouts has been kind of crappy for us lately. At the iPhone event, it ended up broadcasting us about 5 minutes behind real time, which is less than optimal. And it failed to record our last two shows, which is unforgivable. I mean, I know the old "you get what you pay for" joke, but this is Google. Seriously, get your crap together. So hopefully it won't be that bad this time.
Hopefully, it's a bit crazy to think that we've lost those shows that we've recorded and so on. So hey, look, Google, you've got one more chance to redeem yourself before we pack our bags and go home.
Before we rage quit you.
Exactly.
And that was a good show. I mean, the last show especially, we had Mark Gurman from 9 to 5 Mac join us, and I think we provided some interesting commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark is a very, very smart guy, and he always has some really good insights about Apple and what they're doing. So it's always a pleasure to have him on the show.
He is intelligent, yes, not crazy, which is a nice combination.
Plus, for an American, he's unusually polite.
Peter, you're an American and you're polite.
I'm an American. I'm not polite. Come on.
Well, you're a New Englander. I think New England, I don't know what the variance is. There's New Englanders, there's New Yorkers, there's Californians, and then you have a bunch of places that I fly over between those two states.
Right, exactly. The flyover states. And I don't want to disparage them too much, but I don't know. Their ways are not my ways, man. I'm bi-coastal, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, like they do have wonderful airports that we can use because the hub system doesn't let us fly directly anymore.
Yeah, this is true. Although I have to admit, I haven't flown through like a Midwestern airport in a number of years. I usually try to catch direct flights, and the only reason I do that is because I've just had one too many experiences where I'm stuck overnight at an airport hotel because my flight got bumped or whatever, and it always fills me with fear and loathing. I've got absolutely no compunction about checking in luggage. I'm not one of those people who panics and tries to cram everything in the overhead bins, but I don't want to have to deal with a connecting flight if I don't have to.
The only horror story I have is Toronto's Peterson Airport, where they insist on putting customs at street level. So you go through security in Montreal, you land in Toronto, you have like an hour to make your connecting flight, and then not only do you have to clear customs in Toronto, but you have to go through security all over again for no good reason.
Oh, good grief. That is annoying.
Plus, their version of poutine at the airport has gnocchi instead of French fries, and I'm sure that's a...
What?
Yes, I don't know what that is about.
That's just insulting and weird.
It is. We kind of don't know what to do with them. I'm just tweeting out that the show is on, so forgive me. All right, so let's start getting into it. Peter, we'll start with the iPad stuff because, like it or not, that's where Apple's making a lot of their money lately, right. And that's probably going to be the headliner. So what I'm expecting is an iPad 5 that has been redesigned, same 9.7-inch Retina display, but with the design language of the iPad mini. And yes, that's thinner, but more importantly, it's lighter. Because one of the problems people have with the iPad Maxi is that it's hard to hold up for long periods of time. If you're trying to read a book or watch a movie or even play a game, it just gets tiring after a while to hold it up.
It's true. I mean, it's a lot of glass and it's a lot of metal and it's a lot of weight because there's a lot of battery inside. So anything that Apple can do to reduce the size, the overall size of the full-sized iPad, I think is a good thing. and make it a little more competitive in its space. But we can't disregard the iPad Mini in any of this as well. The 7-inch tablet space is an incredibly competitive part of the market right now, and Apple really has to stay on its game to keep up and excel with some of its competitors.
No, I agree with that absolutely. And I was rewatching the original 2010 iPad keynote with Steve Jobs. It's not quite the 2007 iPhone keynote, but it's still Jobs at the height of his new product powers. And he came out and he said it's only a ½ inch thick and it only weighs 1.5 pounds, much less than a netbook. And my, how times have changed.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and if you think about it, that was only 3 years ago, right? It really was not that long ago that the tablet market kind of got kickstarted. Now, tablets have been around for years. I remember when I was working in IT back in the 90s, one of the companies that I worked for, one of our tech gurus got in I think it was a Fujitsu device running some Windows variant. Very lightweight, very small, mainly intended as a dock, almost like a cross between an old Apple Duo dock and a Newton. But there it was nonetheless, a tablet, a real-life tablet. And, Microsoft had been hawking tablets since the early part of the aughts, but nothing really came of it. Nothing really came of it until Apple came along with the iPad in 2010. And
it was 10 years of Bill Gates very sadly holding a little tablet PC.
Right, at CES every year going, the future, I see the future. But it wasn't until 2010 when Apple rolled out the iPad that it was sort of a sea change for the tablet industry. And now, 3 years on, dealing with an incredible growth market, a growth market that has, by just about every analysis that I've read, taken a huge chunk out of the traditional PC market because more and more people are finding that they can get away with using iPads instead of computers, and only using computers at work or maybe using a shared computer, shared family computer once in a while, but otherwise, getting their email, surfing the web, reading their books, playing games on iPads and being perfectly content doing so.
And the amazing thing to me is that this was just 2010, which doesn't sound like a long time ago, but like you said, 3 years ago, the App Store was only 1.5 years old. They were just targeting developers to get iPad apps out. The iOS itself was still called iPhone OS. It was iPhone OS 3.2 that debuted on the iPad. What they've managed to accomplish in 3 short years is amazing, and not least of all might be the new iPad Mini, which should have a Retina display, yet still be, maybe they'll have to thicken it slightly like they did the iPad 3 and the iPad 4, but it should still be a 7.9-inch tablet with a 2048 by 1536 screen. It's going to blow my eyes to the back of my skull, Peter.
If the rumors are true, and if there's an iPad Mini with a Retina display, that's certainly a game changer. Although it's been noted in several quarters that there are already tablets similar in size to the iPad Mini that already have very high resolution displays, higher resolution displays than the iPad Mini. My concern is that I don't want to sacrifice usability for features, and I don't think Apple does either. That's not in Apple's DNA. It really needs to be a compelling buy for a lot of people who are going out and, quite frankly, looking at the iPad going, wow, this thing's $329. That's a lot more than I would expect I would spend on a Kindle. That's a lot more than I might spend on a no-name Android tablet. What am I getting for my money besides the ability to download apps that may be what I'm looking for? Apple really has to offer consumers who are new to the platform, who have never purchased a tablet before, a compelling reason to get a tablet.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Now, that you raise an interesting question because there are competing tablets that have HD displays, typically 1080p displays that are high density, but what's not as obvious is that it's the sheer number of pixels that matter most, and 1920 by 1080 turns out to be around 2 million something pixels. 1048 by 1536 ends up being 3 million some odd pixels, and that requires a ton of battery. It requires a really powerful graphics processing unit, and it typically requires a lot of backlight, and all of those things work against the physics of putting it in a thin package. So maybe Apple has gotten it down to one light. Maybe the A7 is so good a chip, and Apple designed it itself. It's a second generation core. This one's called Cyclone, that it will be able to make that device. Because battery chemistry hasn't gotten any better, but everything around it, Apple might have been able to optimize to make that a reality.
And that's a real problem. Battery chemistry and flash memory storage density just isn't increasing fast enough to suit our expectations for these devices. People want more storage capacity than ever before. People are using more storage capacity than ever before because they're, managing huge media libraries, music, movies, TV shows. All this stuff is so accessible and so easy to get to. And, the obvious solution for a lot of this stuff is streaming, but that requires a ubiquitous net connection, and that's not what a lot of people have.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Most people are not buying 4G equipped tablet devices. They're buying the Wi-Fi ones because they're less expensive. Excuse me. So, Apple's faced with a conundrum. How does it provide a robust ecosystem for people to experience the rich media that they want to have on their devices, while still keeping the device's costs in line with something the average consumer can afford? And it'll be real interesting today to see what trade-offs they had to make to do that. I'm hoping that the iPad mini and the iPad, the 5th generation iPad, are not going to be significantly bulked up from before. I'm hoping that Apple can certainly keep the price level with where it was before, if not reduce it just a little bit.
Well, could the Retina go a little bit higher if they keep last year's around, or a revved version of last year's around at an even lower price? I mean, a lot of people are guessing $400 for a Retina Mini, but then $300 for a standard Mini.
You see, I think that would be a very smart move. If Apple did the same thing with the iPad Mini that it's done with the full-sized iPad, which is keep last year's model. Well, not last year's model in the case of the iPad, but you know what I'm saying. Keeping
the standard res.
Right, keeping amortized technology in production in order to suit a different class of customer who may be a little bit more price sensitive than the adopters that we see buying the brand new stuff off of Apple's shelves. And there's a point to be made too for upselling too. In my experience working for an Apple retailer, I've seen a lot of customers come in who are interested in the iPad 2 specifically because they've seen it advertised in a Best Buy or a Micro Center circular, for example. They say, hey, do you have this less expensive iPad? And when I show them the full-sized or the new iPad, the 4th generation iPad, explain the features and benefits, explain the benefit of having the Retina display and the faster processor and so on, they often get sold. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of a lost leader phenomenon as well. I'm sure the points on those devices aren't necessarily great, but they do get customers, they do get traffic in the retail locations where these devices are being sold to look at them anyway, and then they get there and they realize, well, there's a pretty small delta between what this device, the device that I was interested in, costs and what this device costs. I might as well spend the extra money and get more capabilities or get a better experience for what I'm doing. If they apply that same logic to the iPad mini, I think that would really help. I think that would give, first of all, the 1st generation iPad mini a much longer tail than we've already seen. And it would also get more people in the store to look at the cheap equipment.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. One of the things I'm not certain about, I think we will get an iOS 7.1 at some point, probably soon. The iPad, and we spoke about this last night on Iterate, the iPad's version of iOS is ironically a scaled-up version of the iPhone, and I don't think that'll change anytime soon. Maybe we'll have to wait till iOS 8 for that. But what we might see is new versions of iWork or iLife. Apple has put icons for these on the web page. I'm not sure we'll see redesigns, though, because, for example, GarageBand doesn't make any sense as a flattened-out iOS 7-style application. It's got instruments which are basically, they're more like video games, at least to me, than they are traditional Apple applications.
That's really interesting. I think that Apple could tweak GarageBand's interface a little bit with some elements, but it's already so abstracted in that it's loop based and the user experience for music and for professional video apps is so far removed from the core operating system to begin with. I'm not really sure what Apple would really be able to do there that would be a radical rethinking enough to merit it. But we've heard rumors that GarageBand will be introduced as a free app with in-app purchases. Which seems like a very smart move to me. Give away the capabilities, but for people who get more serious about it or get more in depth, people who want more capabilities, expect them to fork over a little bit of cash for those extra functions. It scares me a little bit though. For these things to go IAP because I've seen the worst of that in games, and I don't want to see Apple repeat that with its own products.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it does beg the question, what about iWork for the Mac? You've been writing about this. I mean, it was last updated in 1812, I think.
Know, yeah.
Or maybe 2009. I get those two confused. They did update it for iCloud, Peter, but we haven't heard much about, and there's also, of course, iWork in the cloud, but we haven't heard much about iWork for the Mac.
Yeah, iWork is really, and I have to say, it makes me a little bit disappointed because iWork is really sort of Apple's red-headed stepchild in terms of consumer applications. It's long, long overdue for new features and new functionality. And, the trick that Apple has to pull off, obviously, is to not be Microsoft with this, is to not fill it with so much bloatware that it really gets disgusting and horrible to use. But still to retain some functionality that is going to appeal to people who are looking for those core capabilities, those office productivity functions, whether it be word processing or spreadsheets and graphs or developing full-blown keynote presentations. These are all important things, and Apple has to compete certainly with Microsoft and Surface, because that is Microsoft's key selling point for Surface right now. It's a Microsoft device. It comes with Office installed. You get all this functionality. And that is something that a certain segment of the population who really wants that functionality responds well to.
I think that's absolutely true, and I think it leads us into the larger Mavericks question, which you've also been writing about for a while. It went GM. It got a rev on the GM. We should get a date and a price today, if nothing else, right, Peter?
One would certainly hope. I mean, it went GM earlier this month. We did see something unusual happen over the weekend, though, and that is that Apple slipstreamed a new version of the GM onto the store. It's got a different revision number, and at this time, I'm unfamiliar with what the differences are between this revision and the revision that most developers installed earlier this month. But it's a little bit of a head scratcher because typically when you get a Golden Master, this is the version that goes into production. So for Apple to slipstream a change in there tells me that there may have been a last-minute showstopper that Apple wanted to make sure got fixed. I don't know if that's going to affect Maverick's production delay at all. I don't think it will, but we definitely should hear today about when to expect Mavericks in the world. And I can't figure that it's going to be that long from now, because Apple also put out last week a call to Mac developers to get their apps, their Mavericks-ready apps, into the Mac App Store for approval and distribution. Typically, they do that only a week or two before a new operating system drops. That's what they did for iOS 7. That's what they did for Mountain Lion last year. So it shouldn't be too long before we see Mavericks out in the world. And I, for one, am very excited about it.
Now, I don't think it'll be free just because the way Apple chooses to interpret Sarbanes-Oxley accounting rules, they don't do subscription-based accounting like they do for iPhones and iPads, which means that, again, according to Apple's interpretation, they can't just add new features and new operating systems for free. They technically have to charge for them. $20 last year. Peter, do you see any great reason for them to change that? Could $10, $5, even $1 drive adoption faster?
I think making it a lower price point would be a very smart move for Apple because Mavericks, there isn't really that much in Mavericks user interface wise to really make it a wow moment for people to upgrade. I mean, sure, you get maps, you get iBooks, you get stuff like tabbed Finder windows and tags, which are a huge organizational saver. And there's a lot of under-the-hood stuff, too, which makes Mavericks really important. I would love to see them lower the price to $9.99, for example, instead of $20. But we'll see what they do. You know, I agree with you, Rene. One way or the other, I think that people are going to get charged for it.
So one of the biggest things at the show, Apple already showed it off. It is the not innovating anymore Phil Schiller's ass Mac Pro, Peter, which again, I believe you almost tried to marry if you could get the right laws passed in Massachusetts.
Well, yeah, we're pretty liberal about that stuff here in blue state Massachusetts, but unfortunately, man-machine love is still not necessarily frowned upon, but at least, you know, they ask you to keep it behind closed doors. So, yeah, the new Mac Pro is a wonderful, wonderful piece of kit, and I'm a long-time Mac Pro user. I've been using, Mac Towers back since, well before the G3 days, back in the old beige box days. Some of the first machines I ever had to take care of as a Mac IT guy were Quadras, which I absolutely adored. But so I've loved the Tower Macs for as long as they've been around, and have owned quite a few of them myself. But you know, like a lot of Mac Pro owners, I was really kind of scratching my head before WWDC this year about what Apple would do with the Mac Pro. The popular one of the popular opinions at the time was that Apple was just going to get rid of the Pro altogether, and the iMac would be enough, and the Mac Mini would be enough. But Apple went in a very different direction, and they completely reimagined the way that the Mac Pro works. And the interesting thing about it was the Mac Pro, I think, on its own, is an impressive piece of kit, for sure. You know, it's a very nice design. It looks like a little turbine sitting on your desk. It's got this back panel of 6 Thunderbolt 2 ports that are screamingly fast.
Yeah.
But if you actually take a look inside, it's really interesting because you've got a system that is set up almost exclusively to be a parallel processing monster. You know, you've got these fastest blazes Intel Xeon processors, which are based on the Ivy Bridge E architecture. You've got these FireGL graphics processing units, workstation class graphics processing units from ATI.
Welded to the motherboard.
Exactly, and from AMD rather. You know,
the backplane. Sorry, Apple. The backplane.
These are very heavy duty machines that you know, when the GPU is used effectively for stuff like OpenCL development, you're talking about something that is just capable of parallel processing, whether it's doing scientific work or rendering or video, can do it incredibly fast, and is in many ways a lot more sophisticated than the CPU that powers the rest of the machine. But then you've got Thunderbolt 2 on top of that, and Thunderbolt 2 provides ungodly amounts of bandwidth. So you've got a machine that on its own can operate very quickly, but when it's working in conjunction with other machines over a Thunderbolt bridge, which is now supported in Mavericks, you've got something that's they can scale up incredibly. So if you're Pixar doing rendering farms, for example, or if you're a scientist interested in creating a supercomputing cluster, or if you're doing digital video, if you're doing any kind of content creation, having this massive Mac Pros can really will be able to make an amazing difference. So really looking forward to seeing them out in the world.
So, I mean, at the event, they have just asked everybody to silence all their things, their digital bits and phones and tablets and beeps and boops and notifications, and I'm sure, you know, their BBMs that now everyone is using, which means we should be getting underway in just a few minutes. Peter, outside chances we probably can't do a Retina display for an iMac or a Thunderbolt display yet. Could they go 4K for, you know, could they make 4K Apple-branded monitors for that new Mac Pro?
I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. I guess it's an outside chance that it could. You've got a machine that could certainly run 4K displays. Whether or not they're going to be available at the same time the Mac Pro debuts, I don't know. What I do know is that one way or the other, a 4K display is going to be very pricey. And Apple tends to run at a premium anyway. I mean, its 27-inch Thunderbolt display is $1,000. That is the high end of what a 27-inch display will cost. With 4K displays, there are small 4K monitors with limited capabilities available for as little as $600. But 4K displays are still several grand. It's going to be a big leap for people to take. 4K is a niche too. It's not something that the average consumer is going to find important at all. But I don't think the average consumer is really interested in the Mac Pro to begin with.
Yeah, I kind of want to strap two of them on my back and see if they're powerful enough to use as jetpacks.
Like the Rocketeer?
Yes, exactly like the Rocketeer. They've got those heat sinks, Peter. I could attain lift.
As long as you're not in the Betty Page Rocketeer outfit, I'm okay with it.
I don't think there's any. I don't think anyone needs to see me in a Betty Page Rocketeer outfit. So we're approaching 1 o'clock. It should get started any minute. Apple is streaming it. If you go to apple.com on your iOS device or your Mac or Safari, maybe QuickTime on a PC, Windows PC, or if you go to your Apple TV and you go to the Apple Events channel, you will be able to watch all the action at Yerba Buena Center come at you live. Peter and I are going to stay on the air. We're going to provide the usual color, commentary, analysis in between the breaks, while Tim Cook and company are speaking. I anticipate Tim Cook, as usual, will come up, do his Apple core values, his Apple retail pitch, because Apple's new retail senior vice president doesn't start until the spring.
Here we go.
Oh, here we go. Copyright 2013 Apple. We have the live blog for text if you can't listen to us. If you're worried what you should do, put the Apple live stream on one side, put us on the other side, and crack open an adult beverage, folks. It's go time.
Never more have I wanted an extra couple of displays on my desktop.
Apple 4K displays. 3 of them.
Indeed. Do you hear that, Apple PR? Send them our way. We'll review them.
I saw some people on Twitter talking about 20K setups for their new Mac Pros. I don't doubt it.
20K setups. Now, how would that work? 5 4K?
No, sorry. I mean, it would cost them 20K to put together the setup.
20 grand. Yeah. No, that sounds about right. Yeah, absolutely. Because 3 4K displays, that would be 10 grand easy, if not a lot more.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. And then you have to choose how many cores do you want and at what speed do you want those cores. I mean, is fewer faster better? Is more slower better? Or do you mortgage your house and get more faster?
I think you would have to mortgage your house for sure. Now, the event is starting out, and it looks like this is a repeat of the same sort of statement of purpose that Apple introduced us to at the September event, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Apple's animation department getting a chance to make a, that Tim Cook core values thing. They want to restate their purpose. Apple is transitioning from a computer company to a brand company. They're hiring fashion executives. They want to make you want Apple. Not just geeks, not just computer people, but everybody, mainstream people. I think this is how they do it. It's not speeds and feeds anymore, Peter. It's just, Apple cool, Apple chic.
And there's something to be said for that. I mean, Apple's of any tech company out there, Apple's always had the strongest brand cachet.
Absolutely. They haven't massacred it the way HP and other companies have.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, one of the most recognizable logos in the world. Right up there with Nike and Coca-Cola.
Absolutely. And the Superman shield. Can't forget the Superman shield.
Can't forget the Superman shield.
So this is a series of dots, and Apple saying, and they've said this often enough, they are just as happy about the things they've said no to as the things they said yes to, and they operate as a small series of startups. They want to keep everything small and, highly focused. And we're inside. And we have Tim Cook. Positive for Tim Cook. Tim Cook has been deployed.
His shirt is untucked. Sell Apple.
Well, no, it just means he's not wearing Burberry plaid, which is refreshing. So we've got the invitation with all the leaves behind him.
One thing I love about the invitation is that it's got all the traditional Apple colors in it.
It does. It's bleeding the 6 rainbow colors. Now, of course, he's starting off with values again. And Tim Cook is not a product guy the way Steve Jobs was. He is a logistics, numbers guy, an operations guy. But he really seems to, I mean, he will walk up the staircase at an Apple store and note how perfect the stairs are. So I think he does have a huge amount of care and consideration for the aesthetic of Apple.
Absolutely. I think anybody who stewards the company has to.
He's going over the iPhone 5C, all its beautiful colors, and the salmon pink. Giving Harry McCracken of Time magazine the quote. And the forward-thinking iPhone 5S, including the gold is best version in the middle, Peter. You still don't have one dangling from your chain. I am disappointed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I will stick with white metal. Well, Mossberg recently no longer of the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, Pogue is no longer at the New York Times. Mossberg is no longer at the Wall Street Journal. The times they are changing. Biggest iPhone launch ever, 9 million the first weekend, doomed. Absolutely doomed.
I hope we're going to get some at Apple's quarterly conference call with analysts next week, we'll get a better sense of not just what the iPhone did on opening weekend, but how the iPhone's been doing overall, because there's been some talk about whether or not Apple misjudged demand either for the 5S or overestimated demand for the 5C. I don't think that happened, but because I'm seeing a lot of 5Cs out there in the world, but
yeah, maybe I think that's true. I think that people don't understand Apple very well. And I think financial analysts don't understand Apple. The 5S was the blockbuster summer movie that Apple has done every year, but the 5C was a television series, the thing that's on the shelves in the iPod packaging, week after week, day after day, that people are supposed to buy for a year, not spike and then sort of lull. And I think we'll see that play out this year. And the most important thing, which Tim Cook himself said, is that it taught Apple how to make two different iPhone launches. And I think next year with the iPhone 6, that'll be even more important, because it should have a new design again, and then they'll have whatever the 5CS and the iPhone 6, and that'll be a bigger differentiator.
Indeed. So this video that they're showing is showing all the people, the happy people on iPhone release day, trying out the new iPhones, trying out the 5S's Touch ID capabilities, and playing with the colorful 5Cs, and many of them, of course, experiencing iOS 7 for the first time, and many people walking out with their products as well.
Yeah, my mom got an iPhone 5C. She's never wanted an iPhone before, and she saw the iPhone 5C, and she said, "Oh wow, Andy Warhol, pop art!" And she ended up getting an iPhone 5C. She's been a long-time iPad user, but this was the first time she's actually wanted to go iPhone.
Now, has she seen that designed together ad that Apple's done for the 5C?
That's the one that did it. That's the one that put her over the top.
I've got to say, just on an aesthetic level, that was a very appealing ad. It was very smart.
Now, Tim Cook is back on stage. And he is so happy with the customer response. He's smiling. Talking about iOS 7. The biggest change to iOS since the original iPhone. David Pogue gets the review nod. A radical, huge... David Pogue, formerly of the New York Times.
Yeah, like you said, the times they are changing. Ha, ha,
ha. Ha, ha. Yeah, and iOS 7, I know not everybody appreciates it, but I think a year from now, 2 years from now, we'll be looking back at this being an inflection point for mobile software. 200 million devices in the first 5 days. fastest software upgrade in history and biggest software upgrade in history.
And I'm pretty sure that at least 2 million of them have come in my store asking how I downgrade to iOS 6.
64%. Yeah, I understand change adversity. I mean, we saw it with OS 10, we saw it with Vista. We saw it with Windows 8. People are not used to having what they know change. But Apple is one company that they're not going to go back and add a start button. They're not going to give you a classic mode. They're going to kick, instead of legacy users being dragged behind them, they're going to force us to get out and push them forward.
So 64% of users have upgraded to iOS 7. 64% of the people who can upgrade have upgraded. That's a pretty impressive number.
Is that can upgrade or is that total? I didn't hear what he said.
Well, we know that 200 million have upgraded, so
Yeah.
Based on that, I'm assuming that it's eligible devices.
Okay.
Because
the
earlier this year,
iPad's not eligible. The iPhone 3GS not eligible.
right?
20 million iTunes radio listeners, all of them in America because it's not available to us non-Ameristanis yet. Peter, why are you keeping the iTunes radio to yourself?
You know, it's not my fault. It's the big media conspiracy. It's media licensing. I just can't imagine what these guys have to go through to get media licensed in different countries. It's got to be a complete nightmare.
I have spoken to several of them, and just getting stuff into Canada is a nightmare, so I can't even imagine what it's like internationally. 1 million apps available in the App Store. 1 million and 60 billion cumulative downloads. Most of those for the Facebook app, I'm sure.
And Angry Birds.
And Angry Facebooks.
Oh, and Candy Crush, too. Can't forget Candy Crush.
$13 billion paid out to developers, mostly Rovio and the Candy Crush King company.
Candy Crush, yeah, exactly.
Enormous. Not all developers would say they've gotten as much of that as Apple could help them get, but that's another show.
Now, Steve, oh boy. Now Tim Cook is recapping the Mac line.
They want to build computers that people love, Peter.
This year, Apple has refreshed the MacBook Air, and the iMac with Haswell processors, and pushed out 802.11 AC Wi-Fi or gigabit Wi-Fi, and made some other changes as well that improve performance and capabilities of the Mac line.
And he's talking about the value of the ecosystem, how Macs work seamlessly with your iPads and iPhones. And that's one of the things. Apple is one of the few vendors doing the complete lineup from computer to tablet to mobile to sub-mobile with iPods. And it's going to be interesting to see now that Nokia is owned by Microsoft and Motorola is owned by Google, whether that changes. Oh, now he's making fun of netbooks. And now he's making fun of Microsoft's no compromise strategy.
Well, I can't answer that question, but what I can tell you is we have a very clear direction.
Apple's got a clear direction.
We still believe deeply in this category, and we're not slowing down on our innovation.
They believe deeply in tablets. They are not slowing down on innovation. Exciting new Mac products, Peter. And Hair Supply is on stage. Craig Federighi, Hair Force One.
Air Force One.
Talking OS 10. He's become a really good presenter.
He has, indeed. He's very enthusiastic and genuinely loves to show the technology off.
Now, he was part of Next, and he kind of left Apple for a while. He didn't really like the direction Apple was going, but then when Bertrand Serlet was on the edge of retiring, they brought him back, and very quickly he's taken over all software at Apple, replaced not only Bertrand Serlet, but Scott Forstall as well.
Yeah, and earlier this year at WWDC, he gave a great Mavericks a demonstration, and I think that that's why they brought him out again today. He is preaching the gospel of Mavericks, which is all about improving efficiency. It's giving your hardware a makeover, as opposed to making real fundamental interface changes like Apple did with iOS 7.
And I think that was really important because battery is the last hurdle, and they can't fix the chemistry, so but they can fix everything else around it. And then, I mean, the MacBook Airs, they introduced 12 hours of battery life, and that was before Mavericks. But they were, I mean, they were using a lot of Mavericks tech under the hood in those new MacBook Airs. They kind of retrofitted a lot of it in there, but now it's going to go official across the entire line. An hour longer web browsing, an hour and a half longer watching iTunes videos. That doesn't sound like much, but when you're trying to finish something and you get an extra hour, it's a lot. Now I was talking about the same thing in terms of memory. When you exhaust memory on a computer, and we've all been there. You know, try to open up another Photoshop doc, or try to open up, you know, Final Cut when Aperture and iPhoto are running. So now they're doing compressed memory. So they're giving you that. They're trying to basically, Peter, is it fair to say they're trying to wring every last atom and bit out of the system that they can?
I think that's very fair. And I mean, you know, Apple's low-end machines are really kind of edge cases, you know. 4 gigabytes when you're working with a MacBook Air is not a tremendous amount if you're planning on running sort of the traditional software that people do on the Mac. So improving performance and efficiency there when it comes to memory is very, very important.
Now talking about GPU improvements as well, video memory, and this is something near and dear to us, Peter, because we've hit expose on the Retina Mac Pro and then gone to get a cup of coffee. And we should get, I mean, Haswell, I believe, has the 3rd generation. Is it the HD3 now integrated?
I'm sorry.
The new Intel integrated graphics chip. It should be a substantial improvement.
Oh yeah, the HD 5000 that's in the Haswell systems.
OpenCL, Apple's making a huge push towards this. This is their open source, Apple-led open source versions of things like NVIDIA's CUDA technology, which lets you use graphics cores as general purpose computing cores. So basically you can offload a lot of intensive computing tasks to the GPU and not bog down your main processor with it.
And this is one of the things that I was talking about before with the Mac Pro that are going to be so key.
And also now talking about the features Peter mentioned, shared Safari links, actionable notifications, which I really want on iOS, app nap, so that Flash instance doesn't destroy your entire computer when you put it behind something else.
Not only that, but Safari Power Saver also works the same way. It keeps Flash off until you actually specifically invoke it.
Fantastic. It might be good enough to get John Siracusa back on Safari.
We'll see. Don't go talking crazy.
Multiple displays. This is so much better. On Mountain Lion, you had multiple display support, but if you went full screen on one app, your other display went entirely linen. It was the most aggravating thing imaginable.
Yeah, to have all this wasted space. You know, it actually handles it well. And what's really wonderful about multiple displays is if you've got an Apple TV, you're not limited to AirPlay mirroring anymore. You can use that Apple TV as an entirely distinct display if you want.
Which is absolutely fantastic. Maps and iBooks are going from iOS to the Mac. People have been wanting iBooks on the Mac for a long time. Maps, you know, a lot of people don't like Apple's Maps, but they're putting a lot of effort behind it, and having it in both places is absolutely convenient. And it's demo time.
You know, it's interesting. iBooks on Mavericks is fundamentally the same experience as using it on an iPad, but it's actually a little bit better because you can look at annotations separately from your iBook. You can do other things as well. You can have multiple ones open.
It's a power user version of iBooks.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, I think.
Craig right now, I mean, he's not demoing it on a new Mac Pro. We should know he's demonstrating it on an iMac, but we won't split hairs here. But he's using all the multi-touch gestures. He's showing off all the excellent features. I am very much hoping for an updated version of iBooks Author that will offer iPhone support. I've been waiting for that for a long time. We should point out none of this is new. This is similar to what Federighi went through at WWDC, but that was a very developer-centric event, and the audience was very developer-focused. This is the mainstream recapitulation, sort of what we got with iOS 7 at the iPhone event last month. Now we're showing off the Finder tab. I haven't used the Finder tabs, Peter, even though they're there. Have you made use of them?
Yeah, I have actually. It's really great. I mean, historically, when I've stored files, I kind of have my own a nested folder hierarchy system of storage that, quite frankly, is overly complicated. Sorted by date, sorted by topic, whatever. With tags, you can just hang meta tags off of any document that you save and then look for it later. So, if I create a whole bunch of related documents and different applications to a specific project I'm working on, I put that project name in as a tag, and then I can pull it up later when I'm searching for those files, regardless of where the file location is.
Yeah, that's very useful. Oh, Air Force 2 reference this time, I guess, telling him to untuck his shirt. Oh, an untucked shirt, scandalous. Ha ha ha. Phil Schiller is his fashion guru. Awesome. I couldn't tell who the message came from. Could you? Was that his wife?
That was his wife, yes.
Okay. And this is the web notifications they're showing off now. So websites, if you allow it, can also send you notifications, which is actually very interesting. I wonder if on iMore we can alert you when a new Peter Cohen editorial goes up.
That would be really cool. I'd like to know that.
Whoa, I wrote that. They do have a VW van up on the screen, Peter, so it is similar. Now they're showing off iCloud Keychain, which disappeared from iOS 7 in the general release version. It was there in the beta version. People have said they were waiting on Mavericks to re-enable it, so we'll have to see about that. I would still like a master password. I'm not going to be using iCloud Keychain until and unless they have a master password like 1Password does.
iCloud Keychain is interesting. It's something that hasn't actually debuted on iOS yet, although it's been promised. I'm wondering if they're just waiting to flip a switch on it until Mavericks is out in the world.
Very possible. But that kind of scares me because I don't want to give someone my phone when all my passwords are just available on any website. I would much rather have a layer of PIN code between me and that. Accelerated scrolling? That's like Turbo Boost on Knight Rider, I imagine. I still prefer Safari because it has, ironically, far less Chrome than Chrome does. They're showing all the data detectors that are built into both iOS and Mavericks, actually OS X in general, that lets it determine whether there's an email address or a telephone number or a location or a time or date in text and send you the appropriate application to act on those things. And I'm guessing we'll see, both the calendar and maps integration for this. And it's giving him, wow, driving times inside the calendar, Peter.
Yeah, this is something that I've been playing with for a while now, and it works pretty well. The only problem is that it actually determines your driving time from where your computer is currently located. So it doesn't get you from point B to point C if you're developing a complicated itinerary. But you can do it yourself, too. It's not something that's completely limiting.
Apple will help those who map themselves.
That's right. It is quite spectacular to see this on a really big display. You've seen Flyover, you've seen the 3D view, of course, on your phone or on your iPad, and on the iPad it looks even more spectacular than it does on the phone. It looks even more spectacular still when you're looking at it on a 27-inch screen. Really magnificent.
I was trying it yesterday, and it is a little more intermediated because you have the trackpad, in between you, but it's so big. Giving a recap now, the demo is over. For a year after year update, Peter, it's not bad. I know you said that a lot of it are smaller updates, but on Apple's new yearly schedule, I think that's what we have to see.
I think that's absolutely what we have to see, and I think that people would howl in rage if Apple had done a real extensive UI makeover in OS 10.
That's coming in 10.10.
There we go.
And yes, I apologize, Mr. Jalkut, but it is going to be 10.10. Here's talking about Lion in 2011, Mountain Lion 2012, Mavericks in 2013. Reinvented distribution, the Mac App Store.
Because you can't buy it on disk anymore. You have to download it from the Mac App Store.
Can I get it on 8-track? Revolutionizing pricing.
Here we go.
Windows 8 Pro, $200. Mavericks is free.
Wow, that's cool. That's awesome. Well done, Apple.
Woohoo! That is interesting. I wonder how. I mean, I don't really care how they get past the accounting on that. I'm just happy they're doing it.
Well, iOS 7 was free too, so maybe it's a better understanding of Starbucks than they had before.
For anyone.
In a single step update, you can get to Mavericks. And we wanted this to run on as many Macs as possible. So whether you have a Mac Mini introduced in 2009 or even an iMac introduced way back in 2007, you're entitled to Mavericks. And again, it's available for free. And the best part,
wow.
It's available today.
And it's available today. Now Phil's going to talk MacBooks. Peter, did your heart just go into palpitations? Free and today?
Free and today. Well, today I'm mainly panicking because I'm thinking about all the stuff I still have to do for our review. Schiller's talking about the new Haswell-equipped MacBook Airs, which have been hot sellers from the moment that they burst on the scene in June. Really insanely great machines, up to 12 hours of battery life, very fast, faster graphics than before.
Mind blown, computer world.
It is safe to say that the MacBook Air may be the best reviewed Mac we have ever made.
The best reviewed Mac they'd ever made.
To now turn our attention to MacBook Pro.
Now they're turning their attention to MacBook Pro.
It's the first personal computer with a Retina display. A display with the pixel so small that a normal working distance.
Phil's talking about the Retina display-equipped MacBook Pros, which up to now have been a specific tier of MacBook Pro.
Mm-hmm. The 15-inch debuted at WWDC last year, the 13-inch at this very event last year. 13-inch first? Even lighter. Only 3.5 pounds.
They've shaved some weight off of it. Very nice.
It's even thinner. 0.71 inches thin. Haswell.
This is a 4th generation dual-core chip. And that chip includes Intel Iris graphics, integrated graphics.
Iris graphics.
Up to 90% faster.
That 13-inch might be my new machine, Peter. I'm not sure. 15-inch maybe, but that 13-inch looks great.
Yeah, the Iris also, the Iris chip is also being used, or the Iris integrated graphics are also being used on the 21-inch iMac. And the iMac doesn't suffer for having an integrated graphics processor. The 21.5-inch iMac low-end model is faster than the discrete graphics-equipped system that replaced it last year.
9 hours of iTunes movie playback.
In fact, this is a real plus for Intel. Intel has taken knocks for the speed of its of its integrated graphics. So Iris was a big advance.
60% faster PCI Flash, 802.11ac. Thunderbolt 2, nice to see, especially if some new displays are coming.
Thunderbolt 2 is going to be on the Mac Pro too, so you can see the theme that they've got here. If it's a Pro, it's got Thunderbolt 2.
New pricing? $12.99 starting price. They shaved $200 off of it.
Fantastic. A better value than before.
So they shaved not only weight, not only thickness, they shaved price. 2.4 gigahertz.
But does this mean the end of the optical drive equipped 13-inch MacBook Pro?
We're gonna, as soon as the price gets to the right point, it's going to. We'll find out. Shipping today. I need a loan. The 15-inch MacBook Pro is also getting Haswell, also getting Iris.
Getting Crystalwell.
Now, what's Crystalwell, Peter?
Crystalwell is the quad core.
Quad core. GeForce GT 750M as an option from NVIDIA. So it's battery life and speed. This is their consistent motto for the last year. Battery life and speed. 8 hours of battery life. PCIe-based flash. 802.11ac. No huge surprises, Peter, but I'm just happy they're delivering all this to us. Thunderbolt 2. Mavericks. No word on whether it's thinner or lighter, so maybe that's unlikely. Previous price $21.99. New starting price $19.99. Sorry, $21.99. Sorry, no, $19.99. $200 gets shaved off of that as well. So not thinner, not lighter, but cheaper.
$100 more than the low-end optical drive equipped model.
Absolutely. Also shipping today.
Also shipping today.
Those are fantastic Retina MacBook Pro updates. I could not be happier with those updates. I just need a bigger bank account. Environmentally friendly Kermit the Frog checklist. Energy Star 6, EPEAT Gold, arsenic-free display, mercury-free display, BFR-free, PVC-free, highly recyclable.
This is our Notebook Pro lineup. Very interesting. They are not doing optical drive MacBook Pros, so those are gone.
It's external or GTFO.
Yeah, and that also means that in order to get into a MacBook Pro, you're actually paying more than you did before.
Yes, although the Air is still at the low price, so that's probably being positioned as the MacBook. Mac Pro, Peter. Screams in the audience. Now, some people call it a trash can. I'm going to refer to it as the Darth Vader helmet. I have far too much respect to liken it to a trash can.
You know, people who call it a trash can, I think, are unfamiliar with the actual physical dimensions of it. It's incredibly compact. It's much smaller than a trash can would be.
Yes. Maybe a bathroom trash can, but I'm still going with the Darth Vader helmet. Unified thermal core, which I'm hoping provides enough thrust to keep me airborne. 1/8 the volume of the giant Mac Pros we have on our desks right now, Peter.
That I'm petting fondly so it doesn't feel bad about itself.
Me too. My Nehala Mac Pro is crying slowly in its fans. They opened it up again. Now, are there Nehalem E5s yet, Peter? Not Nehalem, sorry. Are there Haswell E5s yet?
The E5s that they're using in these machines are Ivy Bridge E.
Okay. But they are still, as Steve Jobs would call them, screamers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, everything is vacuum packed into the body. It's like a MacBook Air. It's like an iMac. These are not slot-based, people are going to go inside and mess with them computers. These are computing appliances, and that is the direction Apple's going.
Well, the memory is going to be upgradable on these machines, but
yeah,
storage.
But those Fire Pros are welded to that carriage.
Yes.
And this basically has the fattest pipe outside of, Jersey sewage systems. Up to 7 teraflops of computing power. Candy Crush will fly on this machine.
Up to 12 gigabytes of VRAM in those things if you go with the highest end systems.
And 1 terabyte, up to 1 terabyte of PCIe flash. I do not want to even know how much 1 terabyte.
1 terabyte costs? Oh, that terrifies me.
It's like the size of the price of a small Toyota, I imagine. Thunderbolt 2, 20 gigabyte per second throughput. That is all the throughput. Now, some people complain about the dearth of Thunderbolt accessories, Peter. Do you think Thunderbolt 2 will speed that up at all, or do you think we're still going to be bare bones on those accessories?
I think Thunderbolt's still going to incur a premium fee for storage devices, just like FireWire always has.
Yeah. HDMI 1.4, which also, by the way, if you don't have enough 4K displays on your Thunderbolt, you can put one on HDMI as well. That's good for broadcasters when people want to check colors and everything else on a television. Now they're going to show off you spin it around, it lights up.
It also makes a calliope music sound.
Any kid who wants something under the Christmas tree that lights up is going to ask Daddy and Mommy for a Mac Pro. USB 3, dual gigabit Ethernet, Bluetooth 4, 802.11 AC, the motion sensor, HDMI, power. Built for external expansion. They built it for customers to do things that even Apple can't.
So I'm
imagine.
sure we're about to watch a video.
Oh, here we go. Dean Devlin, a filmmaker, he's going to blow it up the way he did the White House? Oh, it's not a video, it's a quote. 4K video editing a reality. Could they use it to make The Hobbit look less terrible?
Well, if you had a 4K monitor in front of you, I'm sure it would.
That horrible rabbit slay could just be edited out in 4K. Lucas Gilman, photographer, Sports Illustrated, National Geographic. Cuts his editing time exponentially. Mac Pro on a music editing field.
So
is that Jim Dalrymple's desk, Peter?
No. No, that'd be a Marshall stack with a whole bunch of Heineken empties on top of it.
Lady Gaga, Madonna, the new Mac Pro. He works with Madonna and Lady Gaga, and he's calling the Mac Pro fast. That gives you a relative scale.
The interesting thing here is that Phil Schiller is emphasizing the Mac Pro's usefulness for creative professionals.
Yes, absolutely. $29.99 starting price, $3,000.
Very reasonable. My guess was 28, so I wasn't far off the mark.
3.7 gigahertz, 12 gigabytes, dual Fire Pro D300s, 2 gigabytes of VRAM, 256 gigabyte SSD. Might be the only one I can afford. Maybe. If I sell a couple of organs. And it ships in December.
before the end of the year. Like all of our products,
I was guessing November, but December. This is not a holiday product. No one is waiting to put this under the tree.
No, and it's been discontinued for a while, the old one. So
so recyclable that I'm sure if you don't want one, someone else will die to get their hands on it. It's also energy efficient. It's
Up to 70% less energy.
energy consumption than the previous.
If anyone wants to get me something for Christmas and you're watching this broadcast, we now know exactly what you can get me. I'll start the Amazon wish list after the show. That was my Kevin Mitchell moment.
It's incredibly quiet too. This is really amazing.
Power consumption when idle, incredibly quiet.
The team hit their goal. They set a goal to make it no louder than a Mac Mini.
As loud as a Mac Mini. No louder than a Mac Mini, sorry. That's probably because it's using one of those fancy asymmetrical fans that they debuted with the MacBook Pros.
We're really proud that it's designed by an incredible team at Apple in California. It's going to be assembled.
Designed by Apple in California, assembled in the USA.
Over 2,000 people spread across 20 states.
2,000 people, 20 states.
Prepared to build this incredible new machine. And it's built with technologies and processes unlike anything we've ever done. We've created a brief video to give you a peek
Brief video incoming.
what it's like to create the new Mac Pro.
a look inside the sausage factory is never a good thing. I'm sorry.
I kind of like the sausage, Peter.
I like eating the sausage. I don't necessarily want to know how it's made.
Pro, we had to pioneer entirely new processes. The end result is a computer unlike any.
So $39.99 was the price?
To see it all come together.
$29.99.
$29.99, that's right.
So there we have it. You know, it's interesting to see. 3,000 is right in the ballpark of what I was expecting, and that really isn't too far off the mark for what Mac Pros have cost in the past. So quite frankly, I think it's pretty amazing that Apple's been able to engineer a device that maintains that level of affordability for the sort of functionality that you're getting in these devices.
Yeah, it looks, and we're seeing it is assembled by robots, right?
That's right, because in the future everything will be assembled by robots.
If one of these things knocks, swear to God, if one of these things knocks on my door and says Sarah Connor, there's going to be a problem.
And now we're looking at the human caretakers of the machines.
I'll be back.
This is as close to robot porn as we get.
Well, I mean, the iPhone 5 video was machinist porn, and I don't even want to know, like, this is just, as the kids would say, ridic. Can I pull off the word ridic, Peter? Am I allowed to have that in my vocabulary?
You're allowed to have that in your vocabulary, absolutely.
All right.
All right,
Simon
that's pretty
Sage
damn
is-
cool. Watching the laser etching on the chassis is kind of neat.
It's made in the USA by robots and lasers.
That's right.
I think robots and lasers will be our show title. New Mac Pro.
And that's our news today.
Peter, I'm on 7th Heaven, and we haven't even got new iPads yet. I don't know. Apple's... I don't know.
Next, I'd like to turn it over to Eddie.
What if Apple punks us and doesn't do anything with
No new iPads this year. Thanks for coming. Goodbye. Eddie Q's out on stage. Looks like he's wearing a Kung Fu shirt. Oh, Eddie's talking about apps. Eddie is the Senior Vice President of Internet Services, but he's talking about apps. So maybe everything has gone to the cloud.
So let's get started with
iLife.
the amazing apps that let you do great things.
Oh, new iOS 4 icon. I think we've seen that one before.
And we've got brand new versions of iPhoto, iMovie, and GarageBand, all redesigned to take advantage of iOS 7.
New versions of iOS 7 apps, iLife apps, the iPhoto, iMovie, GarageBand, same icons.
4-bit, you get fast performance.
New Mac apps, 64-bit. Or no, what are these icons for, Peter?
Time to go through all of the new features, but I want to highlight just a few. Let's take a look at iPhoto.
those
Oh, yeah,
for
these
the
are Macs.
the
Yeah.
Mavericks apps.
Photos has never been faster or smoother than now, thanks to 64 bits. And if you've got iOS, iPhoto has got a brand new look. It's
New look. They have had time to redo the apps. Awesome. I believe they brought in the team from Color to make the new Photos app for iOS 7. I don't know if they were involved at this at all, but Apple's got amazing Pro Tools and iWorks teams already at the company. Eddie really looks like he's in a Kung Fu shirt, Peter. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. It's the color and it's the cuffs.
Yes.
All he needs is like the red sash around his waist.
New version of iMovie.
I have to admit, in all the years that I've had these apps, I barely ever used iMovie.
I used it a lot until I went to Final Cut Pro, and then I didn't look back. But I have a lot of friends and family members who just love it, especially even my godchildren. They're very young. They use the trailers feature, and they have a lot of fun with it. This is usually Randy Ublas's pride and joy, both the iMovie and Final Cut Pro. He was one of the original Final Cut Pro team members from Macromedia, if memory serves. And yeah, iPhoto is getting iPhoto Books, which replaces the Cards application. That was taken away from the App Store recently, and it looks like all of that has now been built into iPhoto, which makes a lot more sense. iMovie Theater, which is a new feature. You get your own screening room. It pushes all of your movies that you make in iMovie across the cloud. Hopefully that doesn't count against your anemic storage.
I was just going to say that will be a problem for some users.
Yeah, hopefully they'll say that, because I ponied up for the 50 gigabytes and I'm already running close. 8 tracks to 16 tracks in GarageBand iOS. Oh, 32 tracks. Wow.
32 tracks on 64-bit devices. Not on 64-bit iPhone 5Ss, but 64-bit devices. What else is coming, Rene?
I don't know, Peter. Q-Slip? Maybe. Now, could you fit 32 tracks onto an iPhone display? That'd be interesting.
The interesting thing about GarageBand is that Apple's antipathy now towards skeuomorphism doesn't seem to apply to its music apps.
No.
You know, they're still very fond of strings and knobs and other things that make it look like you're using a musical instrument.
Well, Logic
or
Pro 10 has knobs, right?
A music device. Yeah.
And now we're doing a demo of the new GarageBand. Waveforms. It does look cleaner, GarageBand. It's not quite as wooden as it used to be, although I think I still see some wood paneling on the corners.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more minimalistic, but, you know, it's cleaned up a little bit.
It's GarageBand, though, Peter. I mean, you got to have the drums. You got to have the drums!
It's true.
Guitar amps, drums, audio recordings, keyboards. I'm not sure who Kyle is, but he's talking about shaping him.
Kyle is influenced by modern rock.
Is Kyle a virtual bandmate?
That's exactly right.
Kyle is too tame. They're going to grab a puck. This is sounding very troubling to me. They have pucked Kyle up now, and he is jamming.
That's really interesting. So for those of you not following along at home, what they're doing is introducing virtual musicians who can accompany you if you want, for example, a drum track. And you can add effects like fills and just use a pad interface to sort of affect the intensity of how they're playing.
And they've hired, once again, they've hired some of the best session players in the world, they've said, to provide the content for these things. And Apple actually has the money to do that kind of stuff. They'll be like, Slash, come here and do some guitar for us. Thank you, Eddie. Tell everyone else to get in the room.
Every new Mac comes with GarageBand. You can add more loops and instruments with in-app purchases and new musicians, too.
Nice. So they can buy Gavin? Is that what he just said?
I don't trust
States where
Gavin
that's
and his Lemmy Kilmister mustache.
In states where it's legal, you can now buy performers through in-app purchase.
That's right.
So you just play along until you find a drum groove that inspires you. So that's just a quick look at Drummer. It's one of the many new features in GarageBand, and musicians are going to love having these great drum grooves to play along with. Thank you.
End of demo, but not end of line.
That's right. Well,
Eddie's
Drummer
back.
looks very cool.
Yes.
Drummer, just one of the
Hundreds of new features.
So amazing new versions for iOS, new versions for the Mac,
New versions for iOS, new versions for the Mac.
all free.
All free. With purchase of any new Mac or iOS device. That's probably how they're accounting for the free purchase. Again, Apple's Sarbanes-Oxley recognition makes it hard to add value, but they can do it at the outset. And those are out today. Is everything out today? Today is getting rather full, Apple.
Can't wait to see the amazing things that you're going to do.
That was iLife.
Now our iWorks team has been
And now iWork.
updating all of our productivity.
So iLife is yellow and red. iWork is cyan and blue.
But I want to emphasize these apps are free with a new device purchase, but that's not what they're doing for Mavericks. Mavericks is free as long as you're running Snow Leopard or later.
Yes.
Basically, anything that can access the Mac App Store can download Mavericks,
Which is
as
awesome.
long as it's a 64-bit capable machine.
Full file compatibility.
On any of your devices or any of
iOS, but Mac, and the web. Full file compatibility.
64-bit, it's never been faster. Now you're also
I'm getting all these messages going, really? Free? Really? Seriously?
part of this is it's easier to do things while at the same time being more powerful. So let's take a look at Pages, for example.
Pages up next.
I'm editing a document in Pages, the keyboard comes up. Now I get a new tool across the top that makes it easy for me to tap and just change the format.
And they've made these, is it just me, Peter? No, they cleaned these up. These are iOS 7 versions of the iWork apps, too.
Right-hand
Yep.
content center. So it shows you the right tool based on what you're doing. So let's say, for example, I select some text, the panel on the side now lets me change the style, the font. If I change and now select an image, the panel switches and now I can change the arrangement, change the border. What's great about this is we're not cluttering the screens with a lot of controls like you see in other apps.
They're not cluttering the screens, a lot of controls.
You're creating.
Again, this is deference. They're letting your content
Reinvented
be the star.
spreadsheets with numbers and they're getting even better.
Numbers is getting better.
Gorgeous spreadsheets with our free object-based design.
Free object-based design for numbers.
Beautiful charts. But what's great is these charts can now be interactive. You can see how your expenses are changing on a quarter-by-quarter basis. So a great update to numbers.
Great update to numbers.
Keynote.
They are blazing through these updates. Here's Keynote.
We've got some incredible new effects and animations. Some of you may have noticed some this morning because we've actually been running
New effects and animations in Keynote.
Yeah, and they've
And of
actually been
course
running
they-
Keynote. Yeah.
They are very good at eating their own dog food when it comes to these presentations.
Yep.
object-based animations so that you can do things like this.
Object-based animations, nice. You get the physics.
And all of the transitions have been updated with more realistic physics.
Better physics for the transitions.
They're great and best
New effects.
fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Eddie Q just said it's fun, and it really is. They're really leveraging all their new physics stuff.
What you could do with Keynote in any other app. And there's one more feature that I'd like to show you. And I'd like to
One
invite
more feature?
Roger Rosner up.
Roger Rosner, who's the head of the iWork apps division.
Good morning. Super excited to show you folks the new
He's
iWork.
super excited.
So imagine I've been working on a poster for Eddie's new album.
He's working on a poster for Eddie Q's new. I did not know Eddie Q was a rock star. Now the Kung Fu shirt makes sense. Playing hits from his new album, live at Cafe Max.
Gets better. What I love about these apps, they are the most powerful on the planet.
Most powerful iWork apps they have ever made. Peter, will this win you back to the iWork suite?
Oh, I've been using the iWork suite for a very long time. I'm just really happy that Apple's finally updated them. I just wish it hadn't taken them this long.
I want to watch him redesign the entire iOS 7 home screen using Keynote right now. Dragging in a better photo.
Wow. Eddie Q in a
Is that a pink tuxedo shirt?
pink tuxedo shirt, that's right, or peachy.
I would love to see a lime green tux jacket with a hang glider collar, please.
That would be amazing. And sideburns, please.
Now he's emailing this, probably to the entire Apple mailing list. Putting a link, and he's sending a link to the document, not the document itself. He can click on it, it will open up in iWork for iCloud Beta, which is the web version. Doesn't need to have any of the software installed, probably doesn't even have to have a Mac.
And you know, this is a continuation of the same concept that they first started with iWork.com. I remember creating iWork's documents and sending people links. And you know, they certainly couldn't edit or make any changes themselves, but they certainly could access the files themselves.
This is way better than iWork.com. They're adding collaboration to iWork for iCloud. Will I be able to ditch Google Docs forever? Please.
Please say yes.
If Mobile Nations is listening, this is, I hate to use the terminology, a shot across Google's bow, but if anything needed a kick in the ass, it was Google Docs, because they're horrible applications only made useful by collaboration. Now Eddie is fixing it. Eddie is becoming more modern.
That's looking good, Eddie, but don't you think we ought to use your stage name? Now, Roger, you know, I have actually gone back to my...
Sorry, I'm just typing in the Mobile Nations chat. Goodbye, Google Docs. There we go.
Let's go ahead. I've got this killer album, and I'm going to go ahead and name it.
Cue ball. Nice. They're very self-effacing this time around, Peter.
It's true.
I thought there'd be a... Oh, he's going to change the photo too. Is it going to involve a Ferrari? Oh no, it's his... Oh my, it's his Frank Sinatra. That was a good demo. I mean, it was funny. Eddie Q and Roger and I can't pronounce his name now. Roger Rodner.
Roger.
Collaboration, just one of the great new features. They really needed that feature. I'm glad to see it.
They certainly did, and I'm happy to see them replace the functionality of iWork.com with something much better.
Absolutely. Even collaborate with a friend stuck on a PC. Nice. Showing Office 365, $99 every year. Apple's going to do something bold. Are you waiting for it, Peter? All of these apps for free.
With the purchase of any new Mac or iOS device. So
sure, but you know, in a year or two, that everyone will just have them. Download them today. Why not? What else are you doing today? Apple really wants to clear the skies every fall this year. I picture Tim Cook in an admiral suit on the deck of an aircraft carrier saying, "Guys, clear my skies!" And then all the fighters just taking off.
Taken off, indeed.
Biggest day ever for apps. Holla, Eddie.
He drops the mic and walks off the stage.
He does. He really did. Boom. Tim can't wait to hear the new album. Incredibly rich. This is a good slate of apps, and it's. I mean, It's hard to compete with free. Google goes free because they back it up with services. Apple is subsidizing free apps with hardware basically now. And they're not going to be scanning your documents for AdWords.
With the announcement that Craig made earlier that OS 10 upgrades are free,
OS 10 upgrades are free.
the industry on its ear.
It's going to turn the industry on its ear.
That's why we're doing it.
But that's not why they're doing it.
Customers to have our latest
It's because they care about their customers, Peter. They want them to have the latest software.
and we think all of our customers from consumer
Well, it's about damn time, Tim.
business.
Well, this is the power that Apple brings. Again, they're not basing it, they're not subsidizing it with ads the way that Google is. They're not subsidizing it with content the way Amazon is. They're subsidizing it with hardware profits. And that, at least to me, that is more aligned with how I am comfortable. I would rather you don't have ads or scan my content. I would rather not feel like I owe it to you to buy your content. I would rather just pay you and get something. And that's exactly the relationship that Apple is offering.
Now Tim's moved on to iPad, so this is the announcement that I think many of us were expecting at the top of the hour and have been waiting for ever since he started talking.
Now he's talking about the iPads, our most advanced technology and a magical and revolutionary device at an unbelievable price. And now he's talking about the naysayers. It's not going to replace netbooks. Not going to do it. Not going to replace netbooks. Anyone who thinks it's a game changer is a tool. Is that a Paul Thoreau quote? I can't tell. Might be.
Believed in our vision.
Apple believed in their vision.
Gone on to become one of the most successful products in Apple history. And one of the most
However, as analysts have noted, iPad sales have leveled out and dropped compared to where they were in past quarters.
170 million iPads sold to date. Boom. The hockey stick, even on Tim Cook's own graph, the hockey stick was slowing at the top. He can't think of another product that's come so far, so fast.
Now everybody seems to be making a tablet.
Everyone is now making a tablet. McDonald's is making a tablet. 7-Eleven making a tablet.
Regardless of what you might hear or read about how many are bought or sold or activated,
And now he's talking about the market share numbers because a lot of non-iPads are sold. But the iPad usage numbers remain at 80%. So, Peter, what are people doing with those non-iPad tablets that they're buying?
I'm assuming propping up tables that are uneven and holding open doors.
Sushi service?
Sushi service and drinks as well. They're serving drinks on them.
Nice.
great product with a great experience.
Apple's making a great product with a great experience.
People use it.
And that is a really, because you have to wonder, people are buying, for some people, cheap is the most important feature, and they will buy the cheapest product. But if they're not using it, what is the value of that product?
Inception of the ratings. And the reason
Number one, customer satisfaction.
iPad combines into an incredible experience hardware and amazing software,
Hardware, software,
intuitive service,
intuitive services.
into an experience that no one else can.
And that was the original thing. The technology is not alone commercial with Peter Coyote's voice. They were selling experience. They were bringing experience to a spec fight. 475,000 iPad apps compared to very few for other platforms. I mean,
Now-
Microsoft still hasn't made Office for tablets.
That's 1 million apps overall. So
Yes.
almost half of the apps that are in the App Store are designed to work on the iPad. That's remarkable.
Yes.
About quality.
Not about quantity, it's about quality.
Ways for you to be creative or productive or educated or entertained wherever you might go.
Showing off some of the apps.
So when you think about the combination of hardware, software, services in this incredible
That's an important point because I have tablets that have non-tablet software on them, and it really is like using a phablet. It's like using a big phone, and you miss out on the multi-column experience. I mean, even something like DJ on the iPad is so much more than DJ on the iPhone or what it would look like on a competing tablet.
But what's most rewarding and inspiring
Nice Tech Opinions quote.
is all of the amazing ways
The biggest technology shift of our generation.
iPad. We designed iPad to be the best tool for the things that you do most often.
The best tool for the things that you use most often.
all of the ways that our customers would be using them to celebrate our customers' creativity and genius.
Do you smell video, Peter?
I do indeed.
Short video, creativity using an iPad. Celebrate. Feel it, feel it.
So, while this video is going on, I'd just like to backtrack for a second and talk about the apps. The interesting thing about this, from my perspective, is where this leaves Apple's Pro apps. Is Apple going to adjust down the price of its Pro apps in future versions, or is it going to stick with what it's done, which is, to pretty dramatically lower the cost compared to what buying a box would have cost you a few years ago? Or are they going to do the same thing and say, you know what? We're doubling down on being a software company, a hardware company, and giving away the software for free.
That's a very interesting position for them, because a lot of their competitors are doing just that, and it would behoove them. It would increase their overall value. It would be bad for developers who are trying to compete with free, because they don't have advertising content or hardware to back up their sales. But for an average consumer, buying into the ecosystem would be a tremendous value.
One thing I'm happy about is because the apps are going free, we should see Apple's stranglehold on top paid apps in the Mac App Store finally dissipating.
Yes. Yes. There will be no OS and no Apple apps in the top 10 paid apps on the Mac App Store. They'll probably still get the featured block on several occasions, though. And they're showing old iPads. They didn't wait for the new iPads to show this, I guess because they wanted to have it in real people's hands without it being spoiled. And when we've spoken to lots of people, from DJs to people who travel a lot for business, to people who do photography and stuff, and they really do value the portability and power in the iPad line. That's the mountain that Gandalf smote his enemy upon, by the way.
God, you're not kidding.
Smote his ruin upon that mountainside.
That's a terrifying image.
The Shining was a terrifying image. That one's appalling. Here we go, more amazing stories. Just the beginning of iPad. Busy working on the next generation of iPads. Phil Schiller back on stage. Here we go.
iPad is delivering a new vision for mobile computing, unlike anything that has come before. It all began with this amazing 9.7-inch multi-touch display.
Showing the OG, what's soon to be the OG iPad, 9.7-inch. Hold the internet in your hands. Steve Jobs famously showed it off while sitting on a very nice lounge chair in 2010. Now they're showing off the original iPad, iPad 2, iPad 3, iPad 4. The original one looks old now, Peter. It's amazing.
Indeed.
The biggest step yet.
The biggest step yet. What does that mean?
They're going to show us right now. iPad 5. And it looks like an iPad mini.
It looks like a Mac Pro. Oh my God.
They really have engineering down to a pornographic science.
They really do. Well, marketing engineering down to a pornographic science at the very least.
The next generation iPad. Thinner, lighter, more powerful than ever before.
Well, that was anticlimactic.
Yeah, because they're not using the iPad 5 moniker. iPad Air.
We're going to call it the iPad Pro now.
iPad Air, which is what we heard the iPad Mini might be called. 9.7-inch Retina display.
iPad Air, interesting. Does that mean an iPad Pro is on the way at some point?
Maybe.
Making it 43% thinner bezel, making it even easier to break the screen.
This generation next to it, dramatically thinner, just 7.5 millimeters thin.
9.4 millimeter thickness before, 7.5 millimeters before, so 20% thinner than it was before. That's a nice shaving of height off of it.
Remarkable in finding every
Tenth, every hundredth of a millimeter that they could pull out of this thing.
bezel to the multi-touch surface to the display and battery and enclosure. Shaving
They basically made a deal with the devil to get this thing created.
so not only making it thin, but lighter too.
Now, if they call this the iPad Air, does that mean the other one is sticking around as the non-Air?
That would be interesting.
1.4 pound, 1 pound. So they went from 1.5 pounds with the original, back up to 1.4 with the 3 and 4, and now down to 1 pound.
1.0 pounds.
Lightest full-size tablet in the world.
Lower bezel, lighter feel. When you hold it, it will be a dramatically different
Well,
experience.
it really is earning the iPad Air moniker.
Happens every now and then. We have an Apple product that we introduce where all the words and
$10 says that that's a photoshopped image of that guy holding the iPad Air.
Yeah, no way they trusted that dude with an iPad Air.
feel of yourself. When you get to do that, you'll understand why we
Maybe that's not even a real guy. I mean, that guy could be photoshopped in.
Completely CGI'd.
what's outside. Inside,
A7, not A7X, just A7.
Wow, a crappy old A7 chip.
Oh, they're quoting Gizmodo. Times have changed. Forget the specs. It blows everything away. 64-bit, same, looks like exactly the same as the iPhone 5S, even the M7 motion coprocessor.
We also included the new M7 motion coprocessor as well. Now, the CPU performance is
Twice as fast.
generation, and the graphics performance is double as well.
Now, I don't know if it's double the 6 or the 6X, but we'll find out.
You can see from the original iPad, which started
8 times faster than the original iPad for CPU.
Oh my God, my third gen iPad is looking really sorrowful.
with iPad Air. And graphics performance, look at this increase.
72 times graphics increase. That's where the 3 gets hit hardest, Peter.
iPad Air is going to be an amazing machine to play games on.
Yes.
So many of the things you use.
You'll be able to play the hell out of Angry Birds on this thing.
2 times increase in rendering, and that a lot of that is because of OpenGL 3.0 as well.
Opening large files and doing complex operations can be up to twice as fast. This is a screaming fast iPad. It's faster at Wi-Fi too. For the first time, we use MIMO technology,
Oh, MIMO, which Amazon has had since the Kindle Fire HD.
taking it up to twice as fast, 802.11 and performance.
Only 802.11n though, not AC. They're still not going AC on mobile.
We need to have broadband wireless access and
Which is interesting. I don't know why they wouldn't, unless, the chips are just not good enough yet. Expanded LTE, same as the iPhone 5S got. Oh, the iSight camera did not get improved. 5 megapixel still, 1080p HD video. New FaceTime camera.
With larger pixels.
Yeah, but the iSight camera, I guess they made it so thin they screwed themselves out of the camera again.
So I'm assuming with the camera is probably the FaceTime camera is similar to the one that's being used on the 5C.
Yes. Now the A7 chip could help make whatever the 5 megapixel glass can pull off much better. Still 10 hours of battery life. That was the important thing. Space gray and black. No gold. No gold, Peter.
I rest easy knowing this.
Hold it together, man. Hold it together. Do not rage quit the podcast. Starting at $4.99 for 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi.
What? It's not cheaper? Sell Apple!
$6.29 for the.
Yep, so prices
That's
remain
there.
unchanged.
The iPad 2 is still there. $3.99. The 2011 iPad 2 is still there.
iPad Air will start shipping very shortly, November 1st.
November 1st.
Around the world.
Including Canada. Woo! And America.
No
China
Touch
for the
ID
first time.
sensor.
Yeah.
New iPad Air with Wi-Fi. Right at
Yeah, no Touch ID.
It seems to be something that they are keeping specific or exclusive to the iPhone 5S for now.
Yeah. Now, we had not heard anything about Touch ID, but we wanted it. So I will still be unlocking my iPad like an animal.
That's right. Hitting the home button and punching in passcode numbers like a friggin' Amish farmer. Oh, it's Johnny Ive! This is the first appearance of Johnny Ive at this event.
Johnny Ive is talking.
And the world awaits him his pronunciation of aluminium. You know, looking at the design of the full-sized iPad, I'm not getting the same sense of I guess I was expecting a more iPhone 5/5S style casing around it, but they've retained the sculpted beveled edges that we've come to expect from the iPad.
Yeah, I think they do that because they want to take the controls out of your line of sight. So by doing that sort of a shape, all the buttons get hidden from view, and it's the same language as the iPod Touch and the iPad Mini. Now the sorry.
I guess it'll be interesting to see how fast case manufacturers can respond to the design of the new device as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be absolutely interesting to see because this is essentially a big iPod Touch, so you're now the only differentiator is screen size. I mean, presuming that there is a Retina, the device is the same. You just choose 7.9 or 9.7. Same way you choose 11-inch or 13-inch MacBook Air. Could they introduce an iPad Pro at this event, Peter?
An iPad Pro at this event? No, I think they'll save that for next year or something. I don't know.
April! It's amazing that the iPad 2 stays around so long. I mean, the iPad 3 got dumped after a year. The iPad 4 got dumped after a year. But although these many years later, the iPad 2 stays around.
The iPad 2, yeah. Well, the iPad 2 also gives you a good baseline for performance. You know, it's a machine that I think a lot of people, a lot of software developers aim at as sort of their sweet spot if possible. If they're not really pushing a huge amount of pixels or a huge amount of textures or what have you in their apps.
But it does mean that for developers, they'll have to keep supporting a standard resolution screen. They'll have to keep supporting an A5 architecture.
Yeah, and that does mean some bloat in terms of application size and so on. But it also reassures people who have made the investment in a lower-priced iPad that they can continue to use them.
iPad Mini. Our little friend. It's like an iPad, only condensed, Peter.
That's right. Well, that's actually what they do. They shrink it down in a shrink ray room.
That would be awesome.
If it was like Willy Wonka and the Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory.
Now they're sticking to showing off white devices primarily. That's been Apple's theme this year, all white all the time. Here we go. One most requested feature, Retina display. And that's what they're doing today. 7.9-inch, 20 by 48 by 1536 Retina display.
Some of these people in the audience look positively bored.
How can you be bored? Look, my theory is this. If you read the plot of a movie before you go see the movie, you cannot be bored with that movie. Stay off the internet, you'll be surprised. Bringing Retina to the Air was, once again, an incredibly hard engineering feat. It was not easy to do. Up until the last minute, we weren't even sure Apple would be able to do it for this event. It was becoming expected, but A7 chipset as well.
A7 chipset, yeah. The iPad Mini previously was about on the same performance level as the iPad 2, so this is an incredible jump.
It was an iPad 2. It was the same model number as an iPad 2.
I think this is going to tip me over the edge, Renee. I've been waiting for something to make me get an iPad Mini. I think this is the one.
What is it?
The A7 chip.
Yeah. I'm seriously going to need a loan.
I think
No
I'm just going
gold.
to steal one from work.
New iPad Mini with Retina display will be priced at just $399. That's for 16 gigs of Wi-Fi, $529 with cellular technology.
So did the price go up? I missed it.
The price did
$3.99.
go up.
The price did go up.
$3.99. The price went up by $70. Wow. Okay. It'll be interesting to see how the market reacts to that. I don't think that Wall Street is going to be happy with that. And they're keeping the iPad Mini, so you were right.
Yep.
To $299. All right. Well, I take that back. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to make Wall Street happy.
iPad Mini is $399.
The standard iPad Mini is $299.
$299. iPad Mini with Retina display at $399. A full-size iPad 2 at $399, and the brand new iPad Air at $499. Just incredible lineup, unlike anyone.
And the old iPad stays at what was it, 229, right?
That's right. The old yeah.
229.
What, the old iPad or the iPad Mini?
Yeah, the iPad
No,
Mini.
the iPad Mini gets cut to $299.
$299.
Now, I've got to be honest with you. I hate the iPad smart covers. They
I
create
hate the
these-
case.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Apple's cases either. I think Apple makes cases that it intentionally does not want people to use.
I like the smart cover. I do not like the smart case at all. Leanna and I reviewed it at the last WWDC 2 years ago, and it wasn't great. Now they have product red.
So if you want to appease your social conscience while buying a cover for your new device.
No keyboard case. No keyboard case, at least not yet. Tim Cook is doing the wrap-up. So the new iPhones, new iPad Minis.
And just today, the new MacBook Pros with stunning Retina displays.
New Mac Pros, stunning Retina displays. Peter, I am so broke.
I know.
Mac Pro. I mean, I'm doing the math in my head. $3,000 plus $3,000 plus $1,000 plus, another grand. It's
Yeah, it's starting to add up.
OS 10 Mavericks, the most advanced desktop operating system. We also announced new versions of iMore.
This has been a big announcement today.
yeah.
New iOS devices, new Mac devices, Mavericks, new applications.
Some people in the chat room are saying underwhelming iPad. What else did you want? What could have whelmed you? If this was underwhelming, what would have overwhelmed you? Everyone clamored for a thin iPad and a Retina iPad Mini, and that's exactly what you got, and now it's underwhelming. I do not understand you, internets. Internets, you disappoint. Now we're going to see an ad.
We have reached the official end of product announcements because now we're watching ads.
The only thing is no Touch ID. That's the only area where I could say that I expected something more than they delivered. But again, we had not heard anything about Touch IDs on the new iPads, and it was getting very late. So
That's right, yeah.
the only thing I can think of is that they simply can't make enough to satisfy both iPhone 5S and iPad demand. And then maybe we'll see an update next year with that feature. I mean, we'll probably see an update next year with that feature. Oh, interesting. The chat room is saying there was no mention of iPad mini weight or thinness, so maybe that has gone up. Which would make sense because it went up for the iPad 3.
amazing products are great examples of the type of innovation that only Apple could deliver. This is what we mean by designed by Apple in California. Other companies would be incredibly proud to just have one of these.
Other companies would be incredibly proud to just have one of these products.
To be able to present all of them to you in time for the holidays. I'd like to thank all of the people at Apple that worked so hard in bringing all of these products to life. It's the privilege of a lifetime will work alongside of all of these folks. We have a hands-on area for the press, and I would encourage you to get your hands on these products. They're fabulous. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. That looks like it. So
that is it.
Let's do a quick recap. Peter, we saw at the very beginning, they came out, they did Macs first, not surprisingly. They got that off their plate. Mavericks, free.
Mavericks, yeah, a lot of free stuff. You know, and outside of Mavericks, the proviso being that free stuff on a new iOS device or a new Mac device. But Mavericks is free, and that is a game changer. You know, Apple changed the rules when they dropped the price of the operating system from $129 to $20.
Yeah.
And now they've done it again, which means faster adoption because people will have more of a reason to upgrade. The other great thing about Mavericks is that Mavericks has about the same system requirements that Mountain Lion did. So if your machine's capable of running Mountain Lion, or if it's already running Mountain Lion, you shouldn't have any transition problems to Mavericks whatsoever.
And the nice thing is that if you are running any version, I think they said down to Snow Leopard or something, on any hardware that can run these versions of the OS, you can just get Mavericks for free.
That's right. You don't need to do a two-step or a three-step going to Lion, then going to Mountain Lion. You can actually upgrade directly from Snow Leopard to Mavericks. So that'll get a whole bunch of people who may have been holding out moving in the right direction.
All right. That is absolutely fantastic. And like you mentioned, Mavericks is not the only. Basically, Tim Cook got on stage and said, "Free, free, everything's free. Take it, it's free."
And you get an app, and you get an app, and you get an app.
Exactly. Eddie Q opened your pens and poured free stuff inside. It's ridiculous because I work an iLife for iOS and OS 10. They've gotten redesigned. They've gotten new features. They didn't even have time to show us all the new features, but boy, did they say they were free.
Indeed they did. You know, and that's great. You know, I don't think that the price has been a huge issue for most people so far to get the apps that they need, whether they're the iLife apps or iWorks apps. People need them. You know, people need the functionality. They need the features that these apps provide. But doing so, by doing so, Apple has doubled down on its reputation as a hardware maker and said, you know what? We want people to buy our stuff, and we're perfectly content giving this away for free if it makes more people interested in buying our stuff. And I think that that's a very smart strategic move for them.
No, I absolutely agree with that. The Mac Pro, Peter, it's coming in December, which is a little late than I thought. The price is $3,000 starting, a little bit higher than I thought. Made in the USA, it is still Apple's most... I've never seen Apple make the hypercar equivalent of a Mac before. This is a big Lamborghini of a Mac.
It really is. And, the good thing about it being in December is it gives us a month or two to figure out some narco trafficking or embezzlement scheme to come up with the money for one. So I take solace in that anyway. But seriously, the new Mac Pro is just a screamingly fast machine. It is built from performance from the ground up in a way that no other Mac is.
Yeah.
And you can see very specifically in the way that Apple introduced it, and the testimonials that they showed, they are targeting a very specific market for this device, and that is the market of creative professionals, content creators, who make their living on the Macintosh and who demand a machine that is quiet and that is extraordinarily high performance for whatever they're doing, whether it's producing albums for major pop stars or developing 3D movies or TV shows or whatever. This is the sort of stuff that we're going to be seeing Mac Pros doing, and Apple has tried to make it as good a machine as possible for them. It's also kind of removed the Mac Pro from the realm of just sort of general purpose computing a little bit, which is really kind of an interesting choice. But I think that the iMac and
It's no longer conventional weaponry.
it's no longer conventional weaponry. That's a really good way to put it. The iMac and the MacBook Pro, I think, get most of the people who otherwise might have been interested in a Mac Pro for whatever reason there. And for that niche of customer, the Mac Pro is going to be a hell of a piece of hardware.
All right, fantastic. So iPads, no huge surprises, except we did not get Touch ID. We got almost everything else we could have wanted. A thinner, lighter iPad 5, now called the iPad Air, and a Retina iPad Mini. Those, I believe, are going to be available November 1st. Again, if you've read the internet, if you let yourself be spoiled, there was not much that you didn't expect happening, but that's the price of reading websites all about Apple stuff. But I think those are solid updates. They take them where they need to be. They're hugely competitive. To say they're hugely competitive with competing tablets is an understatement. They are fantastic technology combined with those apps that were shown off. And as you pointed out, Peter, of those 1 million apps on the App Store, nearly half of them are optimized for iPad now. That's an incredibly powerful combination for mainstream computing users.
It absolutely is, and it reinforces Apple's position in the tablet market as the one company with a really coherent end-to-end ecosystem. And looking at it from a broader perspective, a more holistic perspective, Apple offers this continuity of user experience. Whether you've got an iPhone or an iPad or a Macintosh, you can use the same data, work with that data almost the same way, and really have an end-to-end experience that you're not going to find on any other platform. Microsoft be damned. So
you can even collaborate on iWork in the cloud now,
which I think is fantastic. Making it available to those unwashed heathens who may not be using an iPad or a Mac is a smart move. And hopefully it'll work very well. I can't wait to get my hands on it and see how it works.
That is absolutely fantastic. Now, this is by no means the end of our coverage. I'm sure Peter's going to be running right after this to get that Mavericks review posted because that lands today. I'm going to be going on Mac Break Weekly shortly. We're going to have another iMore show for you on Thursday, and we're going to be covering all of this stuff as it starts going live throughout the day. So you absolutely, I am looking at you right there. No, not you, but all the rest of you. Keep it locked on iMore. We are going to make sure this is absolutely the best place for you to get the latest information, the best reviews, and the most awesome content surrounding all of Apple's new Mac and iPad and iOS products. Peter, thank you as always for joining me. Where can people find you in the interim?
iMore.com and on Twitter at Flarg, Flargh.
And I am at Rene Ritchie. You can find me on all the social networks there. You can find me at iMore.com. And for all of our shows where we are discussing these very issues, we have Iterate for designers, Debug for developers, Vector for media types. You can simply go to mobilenations.com and it's all right there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We had thousands upon thousands of people in the live event. We really appreciate it. Have a great day. And again, keep it locked on iMore because, as Tim Cook said, we're really just beginning.